Imagine this. You walk into a room filled with people who all want success, but only a few of them ever rise, inspire, and create impact that lasts far beyond their lifetime. They do not have more intelligence, they do not have more resources, they do not have more talent, yet they lead movements, build companies, and change the world. Why? Because while everyone else focuses on what to do and how to do it, they start with why. Your why is not a slogan, it is not a strategy, it is not a plan. Your why is the emotional engine that drives action, trust, and loyalty. It is the difference between a brand and a movement, between a business and a cause, between a leader and a legend. Today, you will discover the invisible pattern behind every great leader, every revolutionary idea, and every lasting success story. Once you understand this, you will never look at leadership or decision-making the same way again. Simon Sinek teaches that the world's most successful individuals and organizations operate from the inside out. They do not begin with the product, the features, the strategy, or the tactics. They begin with their purpose, their why, how, what. This is the golden circle. And those who lead from their why inspire loyalty, create trust, and attract people who believe what they believe. People do not buy what you do, people buy why you do it. When you start with why, you do not force action with fear or incentives. You inspire action with belief, and belief is the most powerful force in human behavior. Chapter 1. Assume you know. Imagine you are driving down a road you have taken 100 times. You are so confident about the route that you do not check the signs. You do not question your direction, and you do not even slow down. But then, 20 minutes later, you realize something disturbing. You are completely lost. Now imagine doing the same thing in business. You assume you know your customers. You assume you know what they want. You assume you know why they choose you. But what if every assumption you are making is actually steering you away from the truth? This chapter exposes the silent killer of progress, innovation, and leadership. The illusion of knowing. The first brutal truth Simon Sinek reveals is this: most people and most companies fail not because they lack intelligence, but because they assume they already know the answer. Assumption makes you blind. Assumption makes you predictable. Assumption makes you lose your sense of purpose long before you realize it. When leaders believe they already know their why, they stop exploring. When organizations think they understand their market, they stop listening. When individuals assume they are on the right path, they stop asking the most powerful question in the world: why am I doing this? This chapter shows you that the moment you assume you know your why is the moment it begins to fade. The moment you stop questioning, stop listening, and stop observing, you disconnect from the very foundation that makes people follow you. Sinek explains that some of the biggest failures in corporate history happened because leaders believed they were unbeatable. They believed they knew their customers too well. They believed their success was guaranteed. But success makes you comfortable. Comfort makes you confident. Confidence becomes assumption, and assumption becomes disaster. The message here is simple but life-changing. Never assume your why is obvious. Never assume your belief is clear. Never assume people understand your purpose. Leaders who inspire do something different. They stay curious. They listen more than they speak. They question more than they defend. And they check their direction every single day, even if they have walked that path for years. The companies that thrive do not make decisions based on what they think they know. They make decisions based on what aligns with their why, their purpose, their belief, their cause. The difference is massive. One leads to inspiration, the other leads to slow decline. If assumption blinds you, then what brings clarity? If thinking you know leads to failure, what leads to true influence? To understand that, you must go one layer deeper into the psychology of human behavior, motivation, and decision-making. Because in the next chapter, you will discover the shocking truth about how people are really influenced, and why fear-based incentives, rewards, and logic cannot ever replace a powerful why. Chapter 2, Carrots and Sticks. Imagine standing in front of a horse that refuses to move. You have two choices. You can dangle a carrot in front of it, or you can threaten it with a stick. One promises reward, the other threatens pain. Now look at the modern world. Governments use this, corporations use this, managers, parents, teachers, and even you use this. You give rewards to encourage people. You give punishments to correct them, and for a moment it works. But here is the question: if carrots and sticks are so effective, why do people still quit, give up, lose interest, or stop caring? This chapter reveals the uncomfortable truth. Carrots and sticks may create movement, but they never create loyalty. They may control action, but they never inspire belief. Simon Sinek explains that most companies and leaders rely on carrots and sticks because they seem logical. Incentives, bonuses, discounts, rewards, fear of penalties, and pressure to perform all appear to drive action. But these methods create short-term compliance, not long-term commitment. People do not stay for the carrot. People do not stay to avoid the stick. People stay when they believe. People stay when their why aligns with your why. Carrots and sticks work exactly like caffeine: a quick boost, a short burst of energy, followed by a crash. When you run a business using incentives alone, you train people to chase deals, not purpose. When you push your team with fear, you get stress, burnout, and silence, not creativity, trust, or innovation. Sinek explains that carrots and sticks manipulate behavior, and manipulation always has a cost. You lose trust, you lose emotional connection, you lose meaning. The real danger appears when leaders believe that more incentives solve the problem. Trying to buy loyalty through rewards only creates dependency. Trying to scare people into performing only creates resentment. The world is full of companies spending millions on discounts yet losing customers, full of bosses offering bonuses yet losing employees, full of people chasing motivation yet losing purpose. Why? Because motivation driven by manipulation cannot compete with motivation driven by meaning. If a person believes in your why, you do not need to push them. They move on their own. If a customer believes in your why, you do not need to sell. They choose you on their own. If you believe in your why, you do not need external pressure. You act because your purpose demands it. Carrots and sticks may change behavior, but only belief changes identity, and identity is what produces greatness. So if carrots and sticks are unreliable, and belief is powerful, then what creates that belief? What makes people feel connected? What makes people trust you? Why do some leaders inspire action effortlessly while others struggle? To answer that, you must enter the core idea of the entire book, the one concept that explains every great leader and every great company. In the next chapter, you will understand the golden circle. And once you see it, you will never look at leadership the same way again. Chapter 3, The Golden Circle. Why great leaders inspire while others struggle. Imagine discovering that the most successful leaders and companies in history were not driven by what they sold, or even how they sold it. Their true power came from something deeper, something almost every struggling leader ignores. And once you understand this single idea, your decisions, your leadership, and even your communication will transform overnight. It has 3 layers: why, your purpose, your cause, your belief; how, your process, your unique methods; WHAT, the products or services you offer. Most people communicate outside in. WHAT, how, why. They talk about features, benefits, and logic. But this never inspires action. Great leaders do the opposite. They lead from the inside out, Why, how, WHAT. This is why Apple does not sell computers. Apple sells a belief. We challenge the status quo. We think differently. Only after the why is clear do they talk about the how, and the WHAT people do not follow products. People follow belief. People follow purpose. People follow why. When your communication starts with why, something magical happens. You attract people who believe what you believe. This creates loyalty, trust, and emotional connection that no marketing tactic can replicate. But here is the real twist. Even people who think they know their why are often wrong. Because the next chapter reveals the biological reason why starting with why is so powerful, and why humans make decisions based on something completely different than logic. Chapter 4. This is not opinion, it is biology. You might think people make decisions logically, that they compare features, weigh pros and cons, and choose the best option. But what if your brain has been lying to you all along? What if every decision you make begins before you are even aware of it? Simon Sinek reveals that the golden circle is not just a communication model. It is a biological map of the human brain. Here is how. WHAT equals neocortex. This part of the brain handles rational thought, facts, data, and logic. It can understand information, analyze numbers, and repeat features. But it cannot influence behavior. Y plus how equals limbic brain. This is the emotional brain. It controls feelings, trust, loyalty, and most importantly, decision-making. And the limbic brain has no capacity for language. That is why people often say, I do not know. It just feels right. This is your limbic system deciding before logic steps in. This explains why people do not buy WHAT you do. They buy why you do it, because why speaks directly to the emotion-driven part of the brain that drives action. When leaders communicate from the inside out, why, how, WHAT, they align with how the human brain naturally processes decisions. This is not marketing, this is biology. But knowing this is not enough. How do leaders actually use this biological advantage in real life? How do they turn belief into action and turn followers into loyal believers? Chapter 5 reveals the missing link. Chapter 5. Clarity, discipline, and consistency, the 3 rules of great leadership. Every leader talks about vision. Every company claims they have values. But why do only a few inspire while most struggle, confuse, or fail? Chapter 5 exposes a brutal truth. Having a why is useless if you cannot protect it. Simon Sinek reveals that the world's most inspiring leaders and organizations live by 3 unbreakable rules. 1. Clarity of why. You must know your purpose so clearly that it becomes unshakable. If your why is foggy, your decisions will be weak. If your why is sharp, your direction becomes obvious. Great leaders can express their why in one single sentence. The clearer the why, the stronger the movement. 2. Discipline of how. How is the set of values and principles that bring your why to life. These are not slogans. These are daily behaviors. Anyone can talk about honesty, innovation, or creativity, but only a disciplined leader can actually behave that way consistently. How turns belief into action. 3. Consistency of WHAT. WHAT is everything people can see, touch, and experience. Products, services, branding, culture, marketing, they all must continually reflect the why. If WHAT does not match the why, trust is broken instantly. This is why companies fail when they chase trends or copy competitors. People sense the inconsistency immediately. Consistency builds trust. Trust builds loyalty. Loyalty builds movements. But even if you master these 3 rules, there is still a deeper problem. How do people actually become loyal? What makes someone follow a leader even when the path is uncertain? Chapter 6. The emergence of trust. Why people follow some leaders blindly. You cannot demand trust. You cannot buy trust. You cannot force trust. So how do some leaders create loyalty so strong that people will follow them into the unknown even at personal risk? Chapter 6 shows that trust is not magic. It is a predictable biological process. Simon Sinek explains that trust emerges only when people feel safe. This safety is emotional, not physical. Here is the truth. 1. We follow those who make us feel protected. Humans evolved in tribes. Our brain still searches for leaders who create a circle of safety, a tribe where we belong, where we are protected, and where we know we are not alone. Leadership is not about authority. It is about responsibility. A real leader says, "Your safety first, my success second." That is when trust begins. To trust is built in the small moments, not in speeches, not in strategies, not in mission statements. Trust is built when leaders listen, even when it is inconvenient, give credit instead of taking it, take blame. Instead of passing it, put people over numbers, show consistency under pressure. The smallest actions create the strongest loyalty. 3. People trust leaders who live their why. When a leader says one thing but does another, the brain detects danger. But when why is clear, how is disciplined, it is consistent. Trust becomes automatic. For trust turns groups into families. Teams without trust are collections of individuals. Teams with trust are unstoppable tribes. Trust converts fear into courage. It transforms followers into believers. It turns companies into movements. But even when trust is built, there is an even deeper challenge. How do you inspire someone to take action not because they have to, but because they want to? That secret lies inside the biology of the human brain. Chapter 7: How a tipping point tips the science of movement and influence. Imagine a single spark that starts a wildfire, one small change that suddenly makes everyone notice. One word, one action, or one leader that shifts an entire movement. Why do some ideas spread like wildfire, while others fade into obscurity? Chapter 7 uncovers the hidden mechanics behind tipping points, the moments when belief becomes action on a massive scale. Simon Sinek explains that movements, whether in business, social change, or culture, rely on 3 types of people to tip the scale. 1. Innovators. These are the risk-takers who embrace new ideas first. They are comfortable with uncertainty. They are willing to be ridiculed, ignored, or challenged because they believe in the why. 2. Early adopters. These individuals have influence and credibility. They connect the innovators with the larger audience. When they adopt an idea, it gains legitimacy. 3. The early majority. The tipping point occurs when enough of this group embraces the belief. Social proof ignites mass adoption. Sinek emphasizes that the spread of a movement is not about marketing or manipulation. It is about clarity of why, consistency of how, and alignment of WHAT. When people believe in the cause, the movement tips naturally. Movements do not spread because the product is superior. Movements spread because people trust the leader and believe the cause. The why resonates first. The how and WHAT follow. This is why Apple, Martin Luther King Jr., and countless leaders in history were able to inspire millions. They did not convince people with logic. They connected with the limbic brain, the part of humans that feels and decides, not thinks. But here is the challenge. Even if you know how a tipping point works, how do you actually create one? How do you inspire people to act, believe, and follow without forcing or manipulating them? The next chapter will show how leaders turn their why into real-world action that rallies believers. Chapter 8. Start with why, but know how turning belief into action. Knowing your why is powerful, but it is not enough. Many leaders have a clear purpose yet fail to inspire because they do not know how to translate belief into tangible action. Chapter 8 reveals the delicate balance between vision and execution, the bridge that connects inspiration to results. Simon Sinek explains that the why gives motivation and direction, but how provides strategy and implementation. Here is the truth. One, clarity of process. People need to see the how. They must understand the actions that make the why real. Without a clear how, followers feel lost and disconnected from the purpose. Two, consistency in execution. Even with a clear process, inconsistent execution erodes trust. Consistency aligns every action with the why, building credibility and loyalty over time.
3. Empowering others. Great leaders do not micromanage how. They set the principles, provide the framework, and empower others to act creatively within it. This creates engagement, ownership, and momentum. Sinek emphasizes that the combination of why plus how creates a movement, not just a team. It ensures that every action taken aligns with the underlying purpose, creating authentic inspiration rather than superficial compliance. But even when you know your why and how, a final question remains: how do you ensure that every action, every decision, and every communication actually reaches the hearts of the people you are trying to inspire? Chapter 9 will reveal how the alignment of why, how, and WHAT turns followers into loyal believers and ignites action at scale. Chapter 9: Know why, know how, then what? The power of what in action. You have discovered your why. You understand how to make it real. But now comes the part most leaders overlook. The what. Many leaders think the what is the most important. They focus on products, features, or services. But Chapter 9 reveals the shocking truth. Without alignment, what alone cannot inspire loyalty or action. Simon Sinek explains that the what is the tangible manifestation of your why, and how. 1. It is everything people see, touch, or experience from your organization. Here is the key. Insight. What reflects the why. 2. Every product, service, or message must clearly express your why. If there is a disconnect, trust is lost instantly. 2. What builds credibility. When your what consistently matches your why, people begin to internalize your purpose. They do not just buy a product. They buy belief in your cause. 3. What inspires action. What alone cannot motivate people. What paired with why and how creates a complete package that drives engagement, trust, and loyalty. Sinek emphasizes that great leaders and companies use WHAT as a tool, not the goal. They use what to reinforce why. They use what to create clarity and consistency in every interaction. Apple does not sell computers because of specifications. Apple sells products that reflect their why: innovation, challenging the status quo, and thinking differently. But here is the real question. Even with why, how, and what perfectly aligned, why do some leaders still fail to inspire real followers? The next chapter will show how communication, listening, and authenticity are the final keys to turning believers into loyal advocates. Chapter 10. Communication is not about speaking, it is about listening. You might think leadership and influence are about talking, persuading, or presenting brilliant ideas. Most people believe the louder you speak, the more people will follow. But Chapter 10 exposes a shocking truth. True leadership begins with listening, not speaking. If you cannot hear what people believe, need, or feel, your why will never connect. Simon Sinek explains that communication is a two-way process. To inspire loyalty, you must listen to the needs, fears, and motivations of your audience. 1. Listening aligns belief. When you hear the underlying desires of your followers, you can frame your why in ways that resonate deeply. Communication is effective only when it reflects their emotional reality. 2. Speaking without listening creates disconnection. Leaders who only broadcast messages appear disconnected, manipulative, or untrustworthy. Followers feel used, not inspired. 3. The limbic brain responds to emotion, not logic. Listening allows you to understand what moves people emotionally. Once you connect emotionally, your why, how, and WHAT will resonate naturally. Sinek emphasizes that leaders who master listening can adapt their communication while staying true to their why. They inspire belief instead of obedience. They cultivate loyalty instead of compliance. But even the best communicators face a challenge. What happens when success clouds your why? When leaders grow wealthy or powerful, their clarity can fade and followers may start drifting away. The next chapter reveals the biggest challenge leaders face maintaining their why under pressure and success. Chapter 11, When Why Goes Fuzzy, the biggest challenge of success. Imagine you finally achieve the success you dreamed of. You have followers, recognition, and resources. Yet something strange happens. Your influence begins to fade. Why? Because many leaders lose sight of their why once success arrives. Chapter 11 exposes the hidden danger of prosperity. Success can blur your purpose and disconnect you from the very people who believed in you. Simon Sinek explains that when leaders let WHAT overshadow why, they begin to rely on tactics, incentives, or shortcuts to maintain success. One loss of clarity, leaders start asking, "How do I make more?" instead of "Why do I do this?" The vision becomes about numbers, profits, or status, not belief. 2. Follower disconnection. When leaders focus on results instead of purpose, followers sense the inconsistency, loyalty weakens, trust erodes, the emotional bond breaks. 3. Why alignment is the key. True leaders constantly return to their why. They remind themselves, what we do matters because of our belief. This keeps how and WHAT aligned and ensures followers remain inspired. Sinek uses real-world examples of companies and leaders who lost their edge when their why became fuzzy, proving that clarity is fragile but vital. Even with clarity, there is another threat: division within teams and organizations. How do leaders handle internal splits while keeping the movement alive? The next chapter, Split Happens, uncovers why internal misalignment threatens even the strongest organizations and how to prevent it. Chapter 12, Split Happens, Handling Internal Misalignment. Imagine building a team, a company, or a movement around a powerful why. Everything is aligned, trust is high, and momentum is strong. Then suddenly, cracks appear. Conflicts arise. Some people do not follow the why. Teams argue over the WHAT. Loyalty begins to waver. Chapter 12 exposes a painful reality. Even the strongest leaders face internal splits, and how they handle it defines whether the movement survives. Simon Sinek explains that internal splits occur when clarity, discipline, or consistency breaks down. One misalignment of why. Some team members act for personal gain, ignoring the larger purpose. This creates tension, erodes trust, and slows progress. 2. Inconsistency of how or WHAT. When actions contradict the stated values or purpose, confusion spreads. People stop following because they cannot connect emotionally. 3. Leadership responsibility. True leaders do not ignore splits. They address misalignment promptly, clarify expectations, and reinforce the why. They remove obstacles, provide guidance, and realign the team without forcing conformity. Sinek emphasizes, splits are natural. Even movements that inspire millions face internal tension. The difference between failure and lasting influence is how leaders respond. But even when leaders handle splits well, a deeper challenge remains: discovering your personal why, the origin of your purpose, belief, and vision. The next chapter reveals the origins of a why and how understanding it transforms leadership and life itself. Chapter 13, The Origins of a Why, Discovering Your Purpose. Have you ever asked yourself, why do I do what I do? Why does this matter to me? Many people never find the answer. They drift through life, reacting instead of leading. Chapter 13 reveals that your personal why is not invented, it is discovered. Finding it unlocks clarity, inspiration, and a sense of direction that influences everything you do. Simon Sinek explains that your why originates from life experiences, values, and key influences. One life experiences shape purpose. Moments of challenge, success, or failure create insights into what drives you. Reflecting on these experiences uncovers patterns that reveal your core belief. 2. Values are your compass. Your why is aligned with what matters most to you. It is not a goal or ambition, it is a principle that guides decisions, motivates action, and inspires others. 3. Influences and mentors matter. People you admire or moments that deeply move you leave lasting impressions. They point toward your why by showing what resonates emotionally and morally. Sinek emphasizes that discovering your why transforms leadership. It allows you to lead authentically, inspire trust, and create movements that outlast you. But even when you know your why, the world presents a challenge, competition, and distractions. How do you maintain focus on your purpose in a world full of noise, trends, and copycats? Chapter 14, The New Competition, reveals how to remain authentic and unstoppable in today's world. Chapter 14, The New Competition, Staying Authentic in a Noisy World. Imagine building a business, a movement, or a vision with clarity and purpose. You know your why, you inspire others, and everything seems aligned. Then competitors appear. They copy your ideas, mimic your actions, and flood the market with similar products. Chapter 14 exposes a critical truth. Your biggest competition is not external, it is losing your authenticity. Simon Sinek explains that in today's world, imitation is everywhere. Copycats may mimic what you do or even how you do it, but they cannot replicate why you do it. One why authenticity matters. Your why is unique. It is deeply tied to your belief and vision. No competitor can copy your belief, your purpose, or the emotional connection you create. Consistency builds a moat. When your how and what reflect your why consistently, followers can see authenticity clearly. This creates loyalty that cannot be bought or copied. 3. Competing on belief, not features. Sinek emphasizes that leaders who compete on features, price, or tactics alone are doomed to lose. Belief-driven organizations and leaders attract followers because they connect emotionally, not rationally. The lesson is clear. The new competition is distraction and imitation. Your defense is authenticity, clarity, and consistent communication of your why. Even when authenticity is maintained, the ultimate challenge remains. How do you inspire massive action, create lasting influence, and ensure your why lives on? Final thoughts. You now understand the invisible force behind every movement, every revolutionary company, and every inspiring leader, starting with why. But knowing is not enough. The real power lies in living your why every single day. This is what separates ordinary leaders from those who change the world. Simon Sinek's core message is simple but profound. 1. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Logic convinces, emotion inspires. When you lead with purpose, you attract people who share your beliefs. Clarity, discipline, and consistency are non-negotiable. Your why must be crystal clear. Your how must consistently bring it to life. Your what must always reflect it. This alignment builds trust, loyalty, and momentum. 3. Trust is the foundation of leadership. Leadership is not about authority. It is about responsibility. When people feel safe and believe in your purpose, they follow willingly. For authenticity is your competitive advantage. In a world full of imitation and distraction, staying true to your why ensures that no one can replicate your influence. Sinek's book is not just theory. It is a blueprint for transforming leadership, communication, and influence. Start with why, and everything else will align naturally. Reflect on your life and work to discover your personal why. Align your daily actions, how, and visible outcomes with that why. Communicate your purpose clearly and consistently to inspire belief. Protect your clarity and authenticity, even under pressure or success. This is the path to true leadership, loyal followers, and lasting impact.